Hello YouTube, it's Elliot. Thank you for joining me today. If you would like to follow me on Instagram or to schedule a reading with me, please go ahead and see my contact information linked in the description box below. And if you do end up liking this video, please remember to like and subscribe so that you won't miss any upcoming videos. And yes, today I thought I would share with you a tarot spread I invented to help you to find lost objects. Let's take a look. Okay, just some quick tips before we begin. For the purposes of this particular spread, I recommend that you use a deck that has some really concrete, vivid imagery to it, because it's going to help you a bit later on, and you'll see what I mean there. But the reason I bring this up is because for this demonstration, I am using the Tarot of Klimt deck. So it's got a lot of Gustav Klimt's paintings on the cards themselves, and while it's a really beautiful deck and I've had some great reads with it, it might not be the best for this type of spread because it has very abstract imagery. So choose a deck that has really nice imagery for you, that's really easy for you to interpret. Okay, so for today's demonstration, we are going to be using the Klimt Tarot deck. So it is a tarot deck with the art of Gustav Klimt, so it's got a lot of gold and very shiny on it, which is rather exciting. First step in this process is to determine a card in your deck that is going to represent your lost item. So the most recent success that I had with this method was for finding a lost ring. Actually, this ring. It was lost. I guess my cat must have kicked it under the fridge, and I would never ever have looked there in a million years unless I had used this spread that led me right to it. So, pretty successful. Anyway, so the first thing I did when I was looking for that ring was to lay out multiple spreads and see what the cards were telling me about what card can represent that ring. So in that example, Strength was the card that wound up representing my ring. But for the purposes of this demonstration, it doesn't really matter. And the way you will know for when you go and try and do this method yourself, whether or not it works, is you're going to look for repeat cards. So say you do 3 spreads and 1 card comes up every time in each spread, or maybe 2 cards come up every time in each spread. Well, obviously that's a pretty clear indication that that card is significant, and maybe you can choose it to represent your lost item. So for the purposes of the demonstration, let's take a look. Okay, so first card I pull is... Wow, that's really amazing. The first card I pulled is Strength. So I hope that means it's going to be a good demonstration here. So the Strength card, that's going to represent our hypothetical lost object. So what you're going to do is shuffle your deck. Okay, so now that our deck is nice and shuffled, what we're going to do is lay out the cards just as I would for finding the lost object. Remember, the Strength card is the one we're looking for to signify where our object lies. So, the Strength card is beneath the Justice card here. And so what you would do in this case now is to look at the Justice card, since that is the only one that is adjacent to the Strength card, and try and look at any of the imagery in the card to help to inform you where your lost object may be. So as we take a look at this particular Justice card, there is a scale and there is a sword, there's lots of gold, and the colors included are sort of white, green, and blue, as well as there's lots of triangular shapes going on. And actually, if I were attempting to do this for a lost object of mine, and in fact when I did this to find the ring that I referenced earlier, I actually used a different deck that had a little bit more accessible imagery. A lot of the images in this particular deck are a bit more abstract, and so you're probably going to have to work a little bit harder to find your lost object. But in this case, because our Strength card signifying our lost object is surrounded by empty space, that may actually be significant, and so I would try and imagine a location that has empty space around it, or there's lots of room around it, is what I would get out of this spread. And then the Justice card here, I would look for the colors blue, green, and white. And because balance seems to be something of an issue, and she's sort of a lofty figure, a high card, I would also look someplace high for this lost object. It might indicate that it's, you know, she's raising her her scales here. Maybe it is up higher. Maybe it is up high, and then that would make sense if it's surrounded by nothing. So maybe you have like a mantelpiece, maybe it's up inside of a cabinet. It could be lots of different things, but my interpretation for this particular reading would be surrounded by lots of space, maybe up high, and look maybe for those colors as well, or for the shape of a triangle to help to inform where physically it might be. So let's try another reading so that I can show you what it would be like if your card doesn't come up so immediately. You will be turning over your cards, and you will lay them out in the grid as I indicated before. And so for me, these are all coming up. Actually, I did it this way. So starting from the same place, make rows. Yeah, so you're going to deal like you read, right to left, top to bottom, until you have filled up your space. Okay, strength is... So you're going to keep going until you have filled up your space, and you can modify the size of the grid as you see fit, but this is a convenient size because it is the size of my table. Next, what you're going to start doing is continue to deal, but now you're going to place a card in each vertex. So if this is a grid, and then these are like, the cards are like the cells, so they're forming the grid map, the lines, you're going to put it at each cross point. Think of it like you're building a pyramid too. So like you've got 3 cups upended on one another, and they make 2 spaces. For the next row, you put 2 more cups there, and then it's got 1 final space, and you put 1 more cup, and voila, you've got a pyramid. It's the same basic concept. So I'm going to start laying out cards like that. There we go, our strength card. Okay, so there are lots of cards that you're going to want to be paying attention to for this particular reading. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and clear away some of the excess cards so that we can concentrate on just the relevant cards. So first of all, any card that strength is not adjacent to or touching is non-relevant. So I'll go ahead and clear away some of this. Okay, so here is the spread that you want to deal with. I'm also going to widen up the spread a little bit so that you can see the cards more clearly. But okay, so these cards are under strength. This card is out to one side, and this card is on top. Now remember, for this, you don't care about reversals. We have the Star, we have the 4 of Cups, we have Death, and we have the 3 of Wands underneath that are touching strength. And on top, we have the King of Pentacles, and on the side we have the 2 of Wands. So 2 seems to represent future planning, progress, decisions, discovery. Okay, well that's good, because we are trying to find something, so discovery is good. And then we've got a 2 here. We have Wands in parallel. So yes, just keeping in mind that parallel movement, that sort of yeah, that directionality to things. Anyway, the suit of Pentacles might indicate closer to the ground, although I don't see any other pentacles in the spread, so that might not be the right conclusion to draw. Rather, we might look at the meaning of the King of Pentacles, and since we're not reading reversal, we're just going to look at him as a king and as the head of his suit, like what he represents. So he represents, you know, obviously authority and power and stability and structure and all that good stuff as a king, because he is, you know, strong and in control, but then also because he is of Pentacles, he represents abundance and that type of thinking as well. Combining with the sort of two and the parallel motion that I was talking about earlier, we might think about something like, oh, I don't know, a table, something that's, stable, and obviously its legs are running parallel to one another, and the surface will be running parallel to the floor. Just one possible interpretation, one possible way of thinking about things. And that stability story is kind of reinforced by the 4. I mean, 4 just being a number of stability. But the 4 of Cups. So we can think about it like that too. Now, in the Rider-Waite deck, the 4 of Cups is pictured. There's this guy that's sort of leaning against a tree. He's sitting under a tree, and there are 3 cups in front of him, and the 4th cup is kind of being offered to him by a hand coming out of a random cloud that's floating near him. And the traditional interpretation is like, he is not sure whether or not he is going to accept that cup that's being given to him, but he's contemplative, he's meditating, he's thinking, and that sort of thing. Maybe possibly relaxed. And so if I'm going to incorporate the meaning of the 4 of Cups in this case, I might think about, I don't know, a place that I go to feel relaxed. So if I'm thinking about maybe a piece of furniture, as indicated by my 2 of Wands and my King of Pentacles, and then the 4, I might start thinking about, like if I have a desk that I go to get away from the world, someplace to go and work, to be relaxed on the couch, or perhaps I have a chair, maybe even a bed. And that kind of interpretation is supported by the star, too, which can represent healing and rejuvenation and restoration. So the 4 and the star and the king and the 2 all are kind of coming together to suggest maybe a bed, maybe a couch, something along those lines. Of course, strength, we know, represents the thing that we are trying to find, the lost object. Death represents transition and change, and 3 represents 3 of Wands, excuse me, specifically the 3 of Wands represents expansion and yeah, looking at things from a new perspective, perhaps. And so, okay, so for our 3 and death, we can sort of see how those kind of jive with some of the other things that we were thinking about based on what we were seeing in the rest of the spread too, those being the messages of kind of, sleep, because when we sleep we transition into a realm of dreams and our minds expand. So that kind of could work with that theory as well. So if I were reading this way, I would go immediately to my bed, maybe look under the bed, maybe look on top of the bed, something has fallen behind, but either way I'm going to go to pieces of furniture, it would seem like to me. The couch, the bed, armchair, things like that. And I'm going to look under them, just to cover that King of Pentacles type of like grounding situation there. But I'm definitely not going to limit my search to the floor. In fact, it might be within, so you might have to look like down inside the cushions and stuff like that, but that just follows common sense rules for when you're looking for something anyway. But yeah, this sort of spread I would interpret that I would interpret that way, looking for some place that is where I would go to relax or to let my mind expand in some way, and look and see if there's any furniture in a place like that that might be hiding my lost object. Okay, so there you have it. Using that method, you can do a reading that should help you to locate lost objects. Let me know down in the comments section if you try this method, if it works for you. I would be thrilled to hear about that, because obviously it's an untested method, an untested spread for other people. It's worked for me. I was able to find my lost ring with it, and I was thrilled for that, because I would never in a million years have looked under my refrigerator, which only has a gap of like that much between the floor and the bottom of the... Anyway, I would never have looked there had it not been for that spread, so it was really helpful to me, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. So I would be really, really interested to know if you have any experiences that you can share, any successes that you might have finding lost objects with this spread. Please like and subscribe, share your comments with me. I would love to hear from you all. Thank you so much, and I'll catch you next time.